confident the state's housing allocation, especially for affordable housing, RMM, will Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Budget 2015 with me, Nadia Nazir, on tvsarawak.com. Now, of course, we still have our guest, Chairman of Malaysian Cable Manufacturer Association, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Abdul Razak bin Abdul. Thank you, Datuk.
Thank you, Nadia.
Okay, so Datuk, we have just watched our Prime Minister announce the entire budget for 2015. In your opinion, do you think Budget 2015 is in line with the theme of ekonomi keperluan negara?
Thank you, Nadia. This remind me of Allahyarham Piramli punya lagu, song, which is something goes around. Irama dan lagu tak dapat dipisahkan. Therefore, when you look at ekonomi keperluan rakyat, it is something in line with that song. In other words, in order for the kesejahteraan rakyat, ekonomi must be improved, must be, kata orang tu, expanded. Without expansion of the economy, kesejahteraan rakyat tak dapat dipisahkan. Dan juga rakyat juga must bear in mind untuk economy to go up, there must be harmony in the country dan sebagainya. So, it comes hand in hand. Bertepuk sebelah tangan tak boleh. So, ekonomi keperluan rakyat does fit the budget theme this year. Okay, so yes, this is correct. And as we say earlier, before this, before we heard the Prime Minister's speech and budget session tadi, even earlier, we talk about whatever it is always rakyat didahulukan. So for rakyat didahulukan, the economy must be dimantapkan ekonomi ataupun ekonomi of the nation has to be strong in order to meet the rakyat punya expectation.
Now, okay, focusing mainly on Sabah and Sarawak first. I think the allocation of the 27 billion ringgit for the Pan-Borneo Highway is music to many's ears because we've been reading about this in the newspapers and they were talking about this project. Would you agree, Datuk?
Definitely. I think Sabah Sarawak being one of the Sarawak is the largest state in Malaysia, and also Sabah is the next one. And I think with this opening up of the so-called this 27 billion with this highway going on, a lot of development will follow immediately after that. Look at Malaysia, for example. If not because of the North-South Highway and East Coast Highway, a lot of the rural area in the outside Klang Valley will not be developed. So similarly, with this so-called with this Pan-Borneo Highway, I'm sure, as you say, it's music to the ears, but I think it's more than that. It's about time you start looking into that, and this is what I believe Barisan Nasional Government has made a promise. If they come back, they will do what they promise. Janji dikotakan. And I think that is more important. And so-called Pan-Borneo Highway is one of the promise of the Barisan Nasional Government. But more than that, I think if we talk about Sabah and Sarawak, I believe the allocation is more than 27 billion. Especially if I have not yet gone through the detail, but I believe close to about another 4 billion was allocated toward rural development in Sabah and Sarawak. And we talked about it earlier, and I think what the expectation that YB, I think Abang Johari expect that rural development and more allocation for Sabah and Sarawak has been given, and I think it now materialized.
So, what kind of projects, Datuk, do you think will come out of that allocation?
Definitely, if I hear correctly, we talk about basically the rural electrification, okay, water, supply of clean water to the rural area. And of course, we also heard that in the past, like Sabah Sarawak full of road, timber road, now they're going to improve that timber road into a rural road. So again, this is all our infrastructure project, and you must thank to the minister who are responsible for these two things. One is the Minister of Rural Development, as I mentioned earlier, coming from the state of Sabah, and the other one is the Minister of Work, which look after infrastructure, coming from Sarawak.
It's about time. So, Datuk, can you tell us more about the Mini Urban Transformation Centre, they call it the UTC, and the Rural Transformation Centre, RTC, in Sabah and Sarawak? What can we expect here?
Yes, this UTC and RTC is in fact a brainchild of our, Prime Minister, because when he introduced the so-called Blue Ocean Strategy. The Blue Ocean Strategy implies that one thing, if only we unite all the different ministry put under together, and the synergy is even greater. In other words, when you talk about synergy, 1 plus 1 is equal to 5. So when you talk about UTC, RTC, this is where all the ministry will be placed under one roof, under the Urban Transformation Centre, and the Rural Transformation Centre are also the same thing, so that individual rakyat can get all the services under one roof rather than going from one place to another place. This is a clear on his implementation of the Blue Ocean Strategy. Yes, this is because the success in Semenanjung, because of the success rate in Malaysia, in Semenanjung is so good, and I think they are now expanding it to Sabah and Sarawak.
Okay. Now, it was also mentioned that Kedai Rakyat Satu Malaysia will be introduced in Sabah and Sarawak. And so far, we've seen that these shops, they've helped alleviate the burden of the rakyat greatly in Semenanjung, Malaysia. Do you think it will work the same in Sabah and Sarawak?
Why not? I don't think the question, it should work. I mean, we are, like what our Prime Minister said, we are one. Although it's separated by the South China Sea, but we're still one Malaysia. If it can work in Semenanjung, it definitely can work in Sabah and Sarawak. But let me also illustrate on Kedai Rakyat Satu Malaysia. The good thing about Kedai Rakyat Satu Malaysia is in the sense that the goods are all there, except one do not expect branded good.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to talk about cost, later, of course, the cost of living and whatnot, people complain and whatnot. By having Kedai Satu Malaysia, then it's up to individual choice whether you want to buy a branded Nescafe or non-branded coffee, but it's still a coffee. Or you want to buy Lipton tea, or you want to buy nameless tea, but still it's a tea. So under that arrangement, yes, if one is not particular about being branded, if again, like what we say earlier before this, the budget punya PM speech on budget, we talk about one must cut our cloth according to our size. So yes, it will be successful, and I think we should have more. I heard only 3, but I'm sure later on we can expand a lot more.
Okay. Now let's talk about the one thing that is on top of everybody's minds. You know, earlier, even before the budget came out, we were all talking about cost of living. Firstly, we know that BRIM has been increased. That's number one. And on top of that, we've been informed that 300,000 individuals will be exempted from the income tax. So this sounds like a very good news to a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, we also did discuss this earlier when we talk about goodies. Everybody looking for goodies. Budget, everybody wants to see goodies. This is one of those goodies. And the BRIM to be increased is already been expected. But more important now, at least when you talk about the BRIM aspect of it, they also increase those who got 3,000 and 4,000 income, which is so increased from 450 to 650, which is the right way. And I hope hopefully next year budget, maybe those who earn 5,000 and below will start demanding also to receive BRIM. So we don't know how this will end, but at any rate, as things going on, yes, it's good for 2015, the budget mentioned about BRIM. Now, on the aspect of 300,000 individuals we exempted from paying income tax, and I think the government are being practical. I mean, I think the Barisan Nasional Government is practical, and I think whether you're aware, out of 13.5 working population, workforce in this country, there are only less than 1 million who pay tax. So to me, yeah, this is something that. But now they already the fact that we got a 300,000 individual under this arrangement are those who earn last time those who earn 3,005 got to pay tax. Now 4,000 and below no need to pay tax. This is the so-called goodies for the budget 2050.
Okay. Very good. Now, I would like to touch a bit on bantuan sekolah. We always hear about students who are entitled to bantuan sekolah but never actually receiving the help. So, Datuk, how can we enforce this so that nobody gets left behind anymore?
I beg to differ. You say they never get help. The question is the government, even last year, 2014, even now, 2015, now they also increase, I think they still not increase. They still give 100 ringgit for every student, berapa 100 over 1,000 were given $100 each. But of course, the money come normally is meant for their own need. The student own need or but then again, when the money come, normally who take the money? The parent take the money. When the parent take the money, then you cannot say they have not received it. But what the parent do with the money, instead of allocating for the kids punya expenses on school expenses and whatnot, they might use it to some other thing. So this is where I differ from you. They are not getting help. They did get help, but whether that help really benefit them or directly to them or to their parent, wallahu alam. I mean, this is something that one cannot imagine. But as far as the government is thinking of doing, I believe they've done the right thing. They can't give money to the small school children and whatnot. They have to give to the parents. So this is where it comes into the... But not just 100 ringgit. There's also another 200 ringgit, I believe, the book voucher is still ongoing, which is, I think, the government is thinking seriously about education. And under that arrangement, I believe, like it or not all will think, but definitely through time, you see some improvement on this, what they call this, the student development. Malaysia, and I believe, I quote, PM mentioned about three some kind of something that one Malaysian should be proud of. Number one, we are the World Competitive Index. In term of World Competitive Index, we are number 12. And in term, we are third out of the 22 Bloomberg punya recommendation. And in term the accolade that Malaysian has been getting worldwide, especially number 6 in term of doing business in the world and doing business in the country, Malaysia ranked number 6. This to a certain extent, to a large extent, because of our education program. Do not deny that. And of course, when we talk about like any other thing, I believe compared to other developing countries, Malaysia's allocation on education has always been quite substantial. This is what we believe in the so-called modal insan. The capital, what do you call this? What do you call modal insan, which is imply that a nation can only grow if the asset, if the population or the rakyat is educated. So, I for one, coming from in the past, coming from the educational institute and whatnot, I think the government should spend a lot more. If you say 59 billion is small, I would imagine, I would expect more than this, because only then can Malaysia move faster in order to achieve the 2020, where we want to claim ourselves to be developed nation.
Okay. Okay, moving on from that, let's talk about housing. We now know that the government is introducing many new programs catered for graduates who are fresh graduates who are employed in their first jobs, and then there are also those newly married couples, and then, well, actually, it's the youth in general.
Sure.
But do you think these programs will solve the concerns raised by the rakyat, especially those who are saying, oh, you know, like myself, I would like to own my own property in the coming year, maybe?
Understood. Nadia, the government cannot cater for everybody. In any of the, what you call this, in any of their project, in any of their proposal, program and whatnot, there'll be small amount number will be, to a certain extent, is being sidelined or it will not get the benefit. But then again, one has to look at the bigger picture. Does the majority of the rakyat benefited from this? So if that is our premise, of course, there are one or two people like you who have this problem and whatnot, but other than you, the majority, bottom line, majority is a democracy. One has to look at the majority. If the majority benefit, then I think the program does, the so-called housing project that what has been announced, the housing budget allocation that has just been announced, to me, is another extension of penambahbaikan or improvement of the previous budget. And definitely, I think because of the age population, they have to cater now for younger, the youth, which is, they classify youth now, I believe, below 40 now. All right? 18 to 40, which is now, it's no longer youth, 40 sometimes, but never mind. But this is what the government is trying to cater with. Of course, maybe 5, maybe 10% might not be satisfied, but if the objective, if this program or this budget can satisfy the 90% of this group, I think one should consider it's very successful. And you're right. They have given not just the number of houses, they are even now talking about in terms of in the past, all right, they are talking about tax also going to be the so-called sale and purchase agreement will be reduced, and they are even incorporated the so-called Caga Mas. I don't know whether we heard just now, they mentioned Caga Mas is going to be incorporated together with EPF for providing funding for this youth. So basically, and in fact, the government is thinking about the first 2 years of borrowing. The government is putting about 200 ringgit as a monthly allowance to pay first before this youth is ready to start paying on their own, or their so-called EPF money is enough to start paying which is, I think this is what they're trying to do. We're going to incorporate, because banks are very reluctant to support this kind of thing. So the only way now is to go into EPF, which is what Singapore has been doing. So we are not going to follow Singapore, but here we did slightly better than Singapore. Even the 10% is going to come up from the government through Caga Mas. So it's a lot easier now for the youth, those who are in your category, to own a house.
To own a house in this coming year.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Another main concern that everybody has been talking about, still talking about,
Yes.
GST.
Good.
Are we ready as a nation, Dato'?
Whether we are ready or not, come what may, I think April 2015 is going to be implemented. So better attune oneself to the fact that it is coming. Okay? And the fact that this year budget 2015, the number of so-called goods and services that are not being taxed under GST, are not being the so-called zero rated kind of thing, that means you don't have to pay tax for that, has increased. The number of goods, kalau tak silap, they mention about tepung, they mention about even RON 95, okay, they are exempted from GST. So, in other words, goods and services that are essential to the rakyat is not going to be taxed. So no reason why shopkeepers or traders and whatnot, because of GST, going to increase their price, especially for essential good. Yes, there are some product. I mean, as you know, GST is based on consumption-based tax. That means if you want to pay, you want to buy so-called branded item, you must pay for the tax.
Right.
So like kedai satu rakyat, again come back to kedai satu rakyat. If you don't mind buying no brand coffee, then it's a lot better. But if you want to buy branded coffee, of course there are other tax and levy involvement in terms of that. So are we ready? And I believe, Nadia, we have no choice but to be ready.
Better to educate ourselves.
Yes.
How will the government ensure GST will narrow down the fiscal deficit?
Okay, definitely this is one way. One, the government introduced GST is mainly to reduce this fiscal deficit or the budget deficit. As you know, this year budget, last time, if our income, for the last several years already, our income, our revenue is less than our expenditure, so that we have a deficit budget. This year, last year to 2014, the target is to reduce to down, instead of high, percentage of deficit, from 3.5, they are going to bring it down to 3% by 2015. And hopefully, by 2020, the budget will be zero rise.
In your opinion?
Why not? Because we have already achieved, it's another 6 more years. If you talk about percentage, half percent going to be reduced, all right, another 5 years, 3% is going to wipe out.
Okay.
So, therefore, this is a planned target for Malaysia to achieve a high income nation. One of the criteria is the fact that the so-called, our so-called budget must not be deficit. So that is a target.
Okay, it's a possible target.
Yep.
Now, will GST take more from the poor than the rich?
I believe it's the other way around.
Okay.
GST is meant to do the other way around, meaning to take from the rich to support the poor.
Okay.
But it's not just like that, but it's a lot better than that. Even the rich now, all right, normally if they are rich, they pay tax. Under GST, as you know, recently the tax have been reduced from 26% down to about 24% gradually over the years. So indirectly, it's supposed to be beneficial for both rather than take one from the other. But of course, if you are genuine, if you earn money, you have income, you must pay tax. If you pay tax, generally pay tax, GST will help you because you are doing genuinely in the sense that your tax under GST will, your personal income tax will be reduced from 26% down to 24%. So it is more the other way around. The rich, Islamic principle pun, Syariah law pun allow this kind of thing, that we are supposed to pay zakat because zakat is supposed to help the poor if you are genuine. So no different this so-called this tax from the Syariah punya apa ni.
So the poor people will not have anything to worry about.
InsyaAllah.
Yeah.
No. Yes.
Okay, now before we end, Datuk, you mentioned this earlier that Prime Minister said, "I will do what is right, not what is popular." Yeah. In your opinion, is the budget 2015 in line with this?
Yes. I see no two way about it, and believe me the next 2 days you're going to find opposition. The other side will say a lot of things about this budget. Believe me, I'm willing to put $1 on the table to say they will claim this is not right, because now it's difficult for them to comprehend, because like us also, suddenly give them 1 or 2 days, and we have to wait until hopefully by Monday, where the chief opposition, who is going to comment on the budget, and you're going to see there'll be some comment a lot of things yang tak kena, quote unquote tak kena. So yang tak kena ni, maybe this is what we say about doing things are not popular. This is where one has to look at whether the present government or the potential opposition government, whatever it is, can do better than what the present government has done. Okay.
All right, Dato', that pretty much sums up all our curiosity,
Thank you.
everything that we needed to know, especially about GST. I believe that a lot of people are very worried about GST, and like you said, we need to educate ourselves about GST before it comes. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dato', for 2 sessions to help us learn more about GST, of course, to understand more about Bajet 2015. There you have Dato' Dr. Abdul Razak, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. And tomorrow will be news as usual on tvsarawak.com. Have a great weekend ahead.